Welcome to Knott's. We're gonna have a great time.
We love Scary Farm!
True nightmares come true at 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥.
They went all out for the 50th.
I summon the ghosts of Knott's Scary Farm!
History and address Sprite.
It's been a great event, and I want to come back again.
Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Chris. I'm the manager of production management, our creative studio here at Knott's Berry Farm, and I'm so excited to have you all here today. We have a wonderful, wonderful panel that we have to share with you today about Knott's Berry Farm, Knott's Scary Farm, I should say, in our 50 years that we have here, and I'm incredibly, incredibly excited. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to bring out our wonderful panelists. Come on out, everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, y'all know who I am. I'm going to go down the row. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves, who they are, and, you know, in the past 50 years of Knott's Scary Farm, you know, what you've done or what you're currently doing for Knott's Scary Farm. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit more. So like I said, my name is Chris. I'm the manager here of production management, our creative studio here at Knott's Berry Farm.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who have joined us last year, my name is Pasta. I'm excited to be here. I'm a project specialist, but first and foremost, I'm a fan of Knott's Scary Farm. I'm a longtime talent, and now I'm currently in charge of making sure that the talent and these scare actors that you see are scary.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ted Dougherty. Right outside those doors, for many, many years, I was one of the sliding monsters in the Ghost Town Scare Zone, and I loved every single second of it. But nowadays, I am a writer and director for theme park attractions, specializing in their Halloween events. But I'm also a historian. I wrote the book on the history of Knott's Scary Farm. It's very near and dear to my heart, which is why it's a huge honor to be here with you. I've been a proud member of TEA for many, many years. So yes, thank you so much. And tonight you'll see some of the attractions that I personally worked on. A couple new attractions named Cinema Slasher and the Chilling Chambers, as well as Origins and the Legacy Store. So check that out if you can, when you can. So that's me.
Hello, my name is Jeff Shadic. I am currently the manager of Park Decor, visual display for the park. I have actually held several positions over the years here. This is actually my 30th Halloween with the park. So it's my anniversary as well. I have worked in wardrobe early on. I worked in production, building mazes, worked in the theater, and currently for the last 26 years, manager of Park Decor.
I am Todd Stubbler. He's talking about going out there and having the people that slide around to the ground. I was the first one. So basically, I kind of invented all that madness, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, that was kind of me. I was here from 87 until about 2002, running around, hurting myself, falling on the ground a lot. And I've been basically with the theme park industry for 30, 35 years, I guess, give or take. All the different ones. I've worked at pretty much all of them at some point.
Hi, I'm Jeff Tucker. I'm the guy to blame for the hanging and Dr. Cleaver. And this is my 30th haunt, which seems surreal. So it's great to be here, and we're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff.
So how I kind of want to talk about today is I come from working in theme parks for over 2 decades, and I've only really been more so a fan of haunt, and I haven't really gotten to start working in the haunt industry except for the past 3-4 years. So just like you, I come to this as a fan. And so what I wanted today to be was more of a kind of just this open dialogue, this roundtable, and giving you all a chance to see what it's like to just kind of hear stories and hear what the last 50 years have brought at Knott's Scary Farm. And as a fan, just like all of you, to be a fly on the wall, to hear all of the history and, you know, where we started and where we're, you know, where we are now 50 years later. So I just wanted everybody to get that opportunity to be a fly on the wall as they are all talking. And I'll tell you, before we got started, there were at least 2 or 3 times I said, wait, stop talking, save that for later. Like I want everybody else to hear that. So it's just going to be kind of an open dialogue. At the very end, we'll do a little bit of Q&A. So if you have any questions, save that for the end, and we'll have that. But the first thing I kind of want to talk about is, you know, as a historian, Ted, there's so much history that goes to Knott's Scary Farm. You know, where have you seen, you know, where the past, you know, 20, 30, 40 years have been, and how has that affected what we do today? You know, whether it be cinema slasher, you know, we're throwing in Easter eggs in there. You know, there are mazes that we've had in the past that, you know, have made this resurgence in these mazes. So where have you seen it start, and where have you seen it go?
Well, it's really developed a lot over the last 50 years. I mean, Knott's Scary Farm was the first Halloween-themed event at any theme park in the entire world. So all others trace their roots back to Knott's. And so throughout the years, they've just continued to outdo itself. I mean, the purpose of this seasonal event is to really kind of outdo itself each season. So the mazes, you know, everybody talks about, oh, well, you know, back in the day, my favorite maze was this, that, and the other and stuff. And maybe it's not as good as this or whatever. But the idea still is, no matter what, is to continue to be innovative and really kind of outdo itself. And so we take a lot of different strategies when it comes to designing the newer attractions. But the purpose has always been the same, is really to kind of create those memorable experiences, a positive, memorable experience. So that way our guests want to return and revisit us time and time and again for the next 50 seasons.
And so as we're looking at mazes, you know, there's mazes, and of course we have our scare zones that we have. This year we're bringing back the gauntlets, which we have a slider show that we have. And Todd, you were, you know, slider number 1. You know, where does this come from? Where does this idea of say, hey, I want to go full speed sprint and, you know, land on my knees and skid? Like, tell us how that all starts and how that develops.
Well, copious amounts of alcohol and... I'm just kidding. No, well, the first year I worked here, it was I was the first one of the first years of Camp Snoopy before they weren't over there before I came, and then they decided to try that out, and so we went over there, and I had a bad mask, I didn't know what I was doing, just like running around, and Knott's was, I mean, we were trying to come up with new things to do. What are we going to do? We're going to climb a tree. We're going to hide in a bush. You know, all the different things, and so I always like to say, like, pun intended, Knott's was the Wild West of coming up with stuff to do at a theme park. So we tried everything. We were trying all different kinds of things and making noise and do all these things. And one thing some people were doing, there was people that did something called sliding per se, but it was mostly just kind of flopping on the ground, just kind of flopping around, slapping the ground. The term sliding was a set from a stuntman used to work here. His name was Jay Mead, who during a rainy day, they got rained out of the show, and so he just decided to go out and jump in puddles and like dive at people's feet in the puddles, and somebody said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Sliding." So he was like sliding around the puddles, so they're like, "Okay, that's what that's called now." So they would just kind of flop on the ground and that kind of thing, and I thought, I'll give that a try. But I grew up in the 70s, and we did skateboarding, and we had pads, you know, knee pads and all that kind of thing, and I thought, well, maybe we could do something like that. And we had the shaker cans. They'd go clang, 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 you know, trying to scare people with those. But we like to bash them on the ground, and you would bang them on the ground until everything in the can would fall out. So that stuff would. So then we just had empty cans, and we just started scraping those on the ground, and we were like, "Ooh, this is actually pretty good." So I actually brought a sample. So we would take our cans, and we would. Oh, let me get this out of here. So we would take the cans and we would bend them like this. So we would bend them in like a T shape, and then we would take these and we would scrape those on the ground. It's really loud. It's a great scare. However, again, Wild West. So we're like scraping around. He used to work wardrobe, right? Did wardrobe stuff. So we're scraping them around, and somebody like wardrobe or management was like, "What you got there?" We were like, "These are slider cans." So these lasted 1 weekend because we did that, and what we didn't realize we were doing was sharpening them on the ground. So it was just a matter of time before we walked by somebody like whoosh, like cut their leg off. They're like, "No, you're gonna have to throw those away."
This is the same thing that happens in prisons.
Pretty much.
I'm not sure what the problem was. It's just a shank. It's a Halloween shank.
Oh, it is. Totally. It totally was. So we're like,
the
okay,
last meeting I was in was a first aid meeting. I just want you to know. We talked about first aid.
So I wanted to go ahead.
The crazy thing about this, the sliders, every weekend, oh, we need a new pair of pants. We need a new shirt. We need a new this. We need a new that.
Yeah.
Because they just blew through everything
after
a half hour or 45 minutes. So then it started becoming cutting the knees out so the pads were exposed and things like that.
Putting them on the outside versus putting them on the inside, things like that.
What year is this?
1988.
88.
That was the first time. That was when we had the cans, and they said, we did that 1 weekend, and they were like, no. So then we came back, and I said, well, I still want to get the metal on the ground sound, because metal scraping on the ground is completely foreign. You never hear that unless something bad is happening. A car crashes or somebody scrapes something and every head turns. So I'm like, how do I get that? So I came up with the idea of making these gloves. These are the original, very first slider gloves I ever made. So I made metal tips on the fingers and I put washers on the palms, and that way I could still scrape those on the ground to get that same sort of effect. And whether we would basically hide in the bush, and we would just put our feet up against a fence and push out, and like slide at people that way. And then I tried to get some knee pads made, and they didn't sell those at the time, like ramp pads just weren't for sale then. Skateboarding wasn't that hot. So I actually had to build a pair, try to make them out of plastic and stuff. And then from there, we just kind of went into, then we added stuff onto the shoes and stuff, and then we tried to get more and more distance. Like we started spotting people farther and farther away. And it just built and built and built until we have pretty much what you have going now. But yeah, that gloves on the ground, I'll never forget walking into an Ace Hardware. And I got some washers and I got some other things. And I said, what glue do I use to glue washers to a leather glove? And he like blinked a couple times and was like, what is this for?
Dial 91. And then when he finishes talking, dial 1 again.
And I said, it's like a Halloween scary thing. But you know, it worked out, and here we are. And now, like every theme park now has some version of it. It would seem like I've seen it as far away as China.
That's actually true. Yeah, there's a couple different overseas locations that have taken what started here at Scary Farm and have now developed on it.
Right, and so just a couple quick things on that. So one big takeaway besides, well, first off, who here has not been to Knott's Scary Farm yet? Okay, so for some of you, you're about to see what he's referring to later on tonight. But one thing that's very kind of important is a part of I think a big part of Knott's Scary Farm's growth, especially in Ghost Town in the scare zone. So that's the Midway area that's rethemed for Scary Farm. And so is the monsters, the actors were left to their own discretion as to what constitutes character and scare. So when I was working with Pasta in Ghost Town and stuff, I mean, we were able to develop our own characters. And what Todd is really kind of demonstrating is, hey, you know, he did that on his own. Like, there was no, like, the big board meeting, you know, with the Knott family way back when saying, hey, let's have these characters do this. It was something that was very organic because there was sliding, like Todd said, before he started even working Knott's Scary Farm. Going back to 1983, 84, there were sliders in Ghost Town, but they were just sliding on cowboy boots, on their bare knees, and their bare leather gloves, just, you know, beating themselves up. So with Todd's contribution is just astronomical because sliding can be seen at Halloween events internationally now, and we now know that it did start at Knott's Scary Farm.
I've seen it done not even at a Halloween event. Somebody sent me a Chinese New Year parade. in Hong Kong. So it was the Chinese New Year parade, and my friend sends me, goes, fast forward to 45 minutes and 10 seconds. I was like, sure. So I fast forward to that, and it's a group doing like stunts. It was a stunt team, and they had like ladders and whatever, and they were like doing all these flips and all this stuff. And then they had sliders doing tricks. They were like doing the middle and going to the outside, going around a circle and jumping over each other and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is insane. And it was blowing my mind. And my favorite part of that video was, though, that they don't have a word for slider. Because they'd be like, "Think so slider, think that blah." I was like, what is happening right now? But it was crazy.
I love that. So sliding tricks and everything. It was over. You did it kind of all over Ghost Town. One location was near 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥 stage, which is the location that we, traditionally had the hanging in, which has come back for the 50th anniversary. Jeff Tucker is our wonderful writer that we have for the hanging, our show director. Jeff, tell us a little bit about the hanging, where it was, how it's evolved, and everything.
Well, Ted can back me up on this. The hanging began in the 70s. They decided to have a little impromptu. Again, let's just do something, right? It wasn't like they had meetings. So they decided to have a midnight witch hanging. And they would gather the monsters, and they would scream and yell and bring this woman through the town. And she's screaming, "No, I'm innocent." They'd drag her up to the gallows, and then she'd reveal herself. "Yes, I am the witch. I cursed the town." And before they could hang her, she would disappear, smoke, and then a dove would fly off. Like, it was real innocuous. Like, it's not anything you're like, wow, that's... Because we did it for the 40th, and people were like, that sucks.
Well, it was like 10 minutes. It was so short.
We go, no, this is exactly how it was. They're like, I don't want it how it was. I want it how I thought it was. So the hanging had to end because the local Wiccans got upset and said, "You're hanging one of us." We're like, no, she wins. I don't know what the problem is. She actually kills everybody. No, it has to stop.
We have a whole maze about it.
Right. So then we changed it to a gypsy hanging. So they would bring a gypsy through the streets. Then the gypsies complained, which is tough because they don't have a forwarding address, right? Because they're gypsies. No. So
and keep going.
The gypsy thing bombed too, right? And the hanging went away for years, and then a guy named Tom Clough came in and said, hey, what if it's different? What if it's more like a roast? What if it's like a parody of the year's events? And what year was that? Was that 88, 89?
89.
89, and they borrowed liberally from Hollywood. They had Beetlejuice in it, and Freddy Krueger, and so various celebrities from the day, right? What's that? Beetlejuice. Yeah, Beetlejuice.
Well, Freddy was the main.
Freddie was in the show for years. And it morphed and got bigger and bigger. It went from just a handful of actors to a big troupe of actors. Currently, we have 12 actors on stage, and they're constantly making costume changes. And then the show morphed again in 2000 when Ken Parks took over the show. And then in 2001, I was brought in as the guy who could add if he wanted to. You have any jokes? I would put in a couple jokes here and there, and I did that for 10 years. And then the show, again, just morphed and changed into this crazy giant thing up until 2019 when people lost their sense of humor. It just sort of vanished. And we ended the hanging that year. The hanging used to be this celebration of everything that we loved. If there was a movie that I liked, I put it in. If there was a celebrity we liked, we put it in. We morphed the show from an Old West hanging to, in 2003, we did a pirate hanging with Captain Jack Swallows on the stage, right? And we did a Mad Max version of the show. We did all these overlays. We did an Indiana Jones version of it. And by 2019, it had run its course because we would get all these phone calls and letters and, oh, we hate the show, we want it shut down. But did you see it? Well, not really, but I heard about it. And I can't believe you're having it at that Berry Farm, which is a family park. And you're like, well, it's really at night and it's not for kids. Doesn't matter, I hate it. So we went from celebrating pop culture to the final show in 2019. Of all people, Jeffrey Epstein stood up there and lectured the audience on what it was like to have a sense of humor, and then made jokes about how hanging him was redundant. And I remember, it was not a good moment for the hanging. And I remember watching it, because I contributed to that show. I remember watching it, and I went to Ken and I said, does it feel like the show's ending, like it's over? And so by second weekend, if you watch the show, they would project the show would end like on a big downer, and you'd see a tombstone appear on a gobo, and it would say The Hanging 1977, right? 76 to 2019, like it's dead. And people asking, I'm like, yeah, no, it died, it's dead. And I don't know what would have happened in 2020. You know, this choice was made for us. We had no event 2020. And then by 2021, it's like, well, we'll do a carnival thing. And then 2022, we'll do a carnival thing. And then for 2023, it wasn't on the docket to bring it back, because how do you bring it back? Like the minute you make a joke in a room, everybody goes, oh, I mean, it happened here in this room, right? I demonstrated it. There's a point where people go, well, it was funny, but it's not funny anymore because now it's the thing I like. And I'm like, well, we offend everybody. Like the show's offensive. So Ken, who's now up in corporate, said, we want to bring it back. Do you want to do it? And I said, are you kidding? Of course I want to do it. I want to do it, and I want it to be the most offensive show we've ever done. I want to dare people to sit through it. Like I'm being over the top, right? Because I love the show, and I think it has a lot of heart because you're pulling for these two guys because they're back. But let me show you what I brought here. We decided to put a disclaimer before you even go in the show, because I wanted people to get the message. Warning, do not enter if you are easily offended. This is at the front. Seriously, this show is not for you. The Hanging is filthy, dirty, depraved, and I don't know how else to put it, not for the faint of heart. If you'd like to complain, write letters to the manager, or score internet points for being upset, do us a favor and bleep off. Once you pass through these gates, you're not allowed to bitch about anything. Give up your seat to someone who has a sense of humor and will enjoy all the hard work it took to bring this show back. Thank you, the cast and crew of The Hanging. Now, the sign's in the front of the show, and a couple of nights ago it wasn't there because we have a couple of other signs that are not as funny as that one, but they're pretty funny. And John Storbeck, our head guy here, said, where's the sign, Jeff? I was like, we have to get the sign, yeah. He says, yeah, people like to take pictures with it. So I put it back in place, and as soon as I put it back in place, like that scene in Little Shop of Horrors where they put the plant in the window and everybody's like, I want to see the plant. As soon as I put it in place, it's like... So the sign is popular. We're hoping to make a T-shirt out of it, which is great. But The Hanging is back.
I'd buy that.
It's really funny. I'm incredibly proud of everybody who has worked on it. It has been 8 months of work for me. Like the whole year was The Hanging. In addition to my other stuff, like I would do the other stuff and then like, let's do some Hanging stuff. Because pop culture changes and ebbs and flows, and what was funny in February is not so funny now. I'll wrap up with,
to your point, talking about how the show changes, I did props on that show, oh my God, I don't even know how many years, probably 10 or 15 years. And that show, one night you would be rehearsing one thing, the next night it's gone and there's something completely new in, and I'd get a list of another 25 props that I needed to have the next night for them to rehearse with. It would change every single night. This isn't working, that, cut this, bring this in, get me this, get me that. I never knew whether I was coming or going when I was working on that show.
Well, I was in some of the shows. I was in the show. They would bring in some of the monsters to be either sort of security down in the front or move props or move like crash pads. They'd be doing these stunts off the top of the barn. And several times we would do the first rehearsal, like, okay, first rehearsal, and we do it, and we're like, that's like an hour and a half. Like, are people going to stand there for an hour and a half? They go, I don't know, most of this is going to get cut. I'm like, well, why are we rehearsing it?
Yeah, that's the way the show ebbs and flows, yeah.
It really, truly did. And then something big will happen, and it'll be all over in the media, and then the next night it's in the show.
Yeah, I've already done that.
During the run.
Yeah, I've already done that.
During the run.
Like we have Taylor Swift in the show, and he spoiler alert, he shoots her, right? Okay, sorry. He's supposed to go, we got bad blood. Bang, look what you made me do. And it wasn't really hitting, so now he says, aren't you supposed to be ruining a football game somewhere? Bang.
So you sent me final script, and then you sent me like 3 more versions. We got to rehearsals. What version was that? when we got to rehearsals?
16.
16.
Yeah, and that's being generous because you call it a draft, but like it probably went through 40, at least 40 versions. And the best part is we did a preview event in August where I stood up on stage and said, hey, all these shows are back. And then at the end, I revealed the news and that the hanging was back and it was going to be crazy and upsetting to people and everybody lost their minds. And the script that we had at that point was very cynical because I was very cynical about the show coming back at all. And when I saw that the crowd was like ready for it, like we want it the way it was, the next morning, I was up all night. I rewrote the whole ending. I changed who gets the big thing at the end, who gets hanged at the end. And I'm so proud of what we did because if we'd gone with that original version, it would have been a big downer. Like, oh, this is like Christmas is canceled, right? And instead, it leaves on such a high note that you're talking about the show being long. I want the show to be about 28, 29 minutes. That's how we keep it. Because if you get in a half hour before to get your seat, then the show's a half hour. You've already given up an hour of your night. I'm trying to be thoughtful of that. People don't leave. They're having such a good time because of what's happening on the stage. And we do like the Marvel thing where after the credits, there's a scene, right? So we do some cool stuff at the end, and the actors are like talking to the audience going, why don't you leave? The show is over. But nobody wants to leave because it's such a love letter to the fans because like everybody on this panel, I'm a big Scary Farm fan. I'm a fan first and foremost, and everything I do here is always geared up, is it going to be exciting and fun and different for the fans? And the hanging this year is. And I'll leave you with we just had the competition people here last night. The winners of the Haunt Comp, the winners. And they're like, well, what's the show like? Because we've never seen it. And I'm like, well, you really have to experience it, But I said, I'll tell you the first joke. And if you can get past the first joke, you'll love the rest of the show. And the first joke is a guy bursts out of a crate. He's been locked into a box. He bursts out and he says to the audience, oh my God, that crate is smaller than a billionaire's submarine.
Judging by the laughs, maybe you should all go see The Hanging.
Yeah. And we just dive after that. So, thank you.
And the best part of that is that Pasta and I get all those complaints.
When they talk about the complaints for The Hanging, yes, that's me and Christo. Hello. But I will say one thing that Jeff made a testament to is really, ultimately, this entire season is about the fans. Like, I don't know if you guys are on Facebook, but Jeff Shadic made this great set piece that's actually currently up on Chow House, now has its own following that the fans have. His name is Steve, and we have people worshiping Steve in the middle of Calico Park. And I'm not even joking. You don't know about Steve? But people bow to Steve. So this is like a whole thing, is that we've created this event. It's now 50 years in the making. But this year, people have taken it, and they are this event is for them. Yes, we are doing it for the general consumer, but this year especially, with bringing back the hanging and bringing back the gauntlet, those are all fan favorites. But we've created something here that's super important. But yeah, you have a cult named Steve.
Well, it's kind of like Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. Like right up Kevin. So we create these environments for these people to live in, and they love it. Like, you've been here, you've been doing the book signings. Like, it's truly something amazing that we've done here at Knott's Scary Farm for 50 years.
Well, Pasta, who wouldn't want to live in Halloween Town? Like, we get to live in Halloween Town. It's the best thing ever.
So I mentioned Kevin. Kevin is a skeleton. So during the pandemic, when we did our Taste of Halloween, I was tasked with decorating Camp Snoopy, but not just Camp Snoopy, all of the rides. And I'm like, well, how the heck am I going to do that? Our GM says, I want skeletons in all the rides. Okay, so run to Home Depot and order hundreds of plastic skeletons. They're all on the ride. Some of them are dressed, some of them are ride operators and different things. And then I put name tags, my name on one, someone from wardrobe, because there weren't a lot of us really working around here at that point. So just to have some fun, I put name tags on a couple of them. The GM comes to me and goes, no, they're all named Kevin. I'm like, Okay. So Kevin has become his own Instagram. Right up Kevin. And every year the fans look for Kevin. So I always have to find a new place to put Kevin. Where is he working this year? Last year it was in Goring 20s. This year he's poisoning people in a window display. I mean, so every year Kevin comes back and makes a new appearance.
And now you have Steve.
And now apparently I have Steve.
So one thing that you're kind of seeing, and what I love about this place, is that there's so much of, the people up here are just as much fans as they are the people who create and do all the things that are all things Knott's Scary Farm. And that's so special that, there's so much passion behind it and say, what can we do? How can we satisfy the fans and ourselves who are ourselves fans? And Jeff, I mean, I walk out there. It is beautiful out there. There are these amazing photo opportunities that we have. And, 50 years ago, 40, 30, 20 to today, the decor out there has changed, right? It used to be, hey, we're going to set up this beautiful, landscape. But now, someone like me, I want my likes, I want to curate this beautiful photo, How has that changed for you, as you're out there?
So in the early years of Scary Farm, it was Ghost Town, and it was some scare cloth, which is our cobwebs you see everywhere, and they hung camo net. That was it. That was the extent of the decor. There, you might see a skeleton somewhere, that kind of thing. When I took over, there were only a few areas of the park that were decorated. It was Ghost Town and Camp Snoopy. And I've been tasked over the years to now decorate every area of the park for Halloween and come up with different themes. So then I started having to go down this path was, well, what is this all about? What's causing it? Why is it happening? And so my thought process developed. It is the funeral of the park. That's why when you come in the main gate, it's all draped in black and purple funeral bunting, and there's funeral wreaths everywhere. The skeletons are there to greet you. This year we added all the skull chandeliers as you enter. Then you see the 50th medallions as well. And then the candelabras were all added to the ticket booths this year. But for me, it's the death of the park, and the dead are coming to life, and it's one giant funeral is how I developed it. It's a dead man's party. There you go. Thank you, Pasta. So, and then as entertainment comes up with new concepts and designs, so what is Goring 20s? So the first year we did it, it was very simple because I'm like, I couldn't figure out how to tie decor into it. So then I was thinking and asking entertainment, when did this happen? We know that they're all dead, but when did it happen? And then I said, could it have happened on Halloween? So that's why you will see kind of a vintage feel Halloween decoration in the area, just simple pumpkins and black and orange and things like that. So it actually happened on Halloween, and the citizens decorated that area for Halloween.
And what I love about that, we were having this discussion, and there was a point you literally said, he says Halloween night on there, and it was literally from that one line that you developed this whole package, right?
Correct.
From just one line of what a performer said. So it's amazing that you take this snippet, this snapshot of something, and you're able to just transform something completely, right?
Right. And that's where it came from. It's just because it needed more of a look. It felt just kind of plain and simple. We had just had some like dead plants hanging on the light poles and things like that. So this year it got a full overlay, as well as Carnival. Carnival was fun, had different colored lights, but it just didn't feel like a carnival. So my brain this year for the development of it, there had been things that entertainment had proposed, but for one reason or another, they didn't happen. And I'm like, okay, so how did this come to be? It's an old carnival, is literally what it is. And this is all the decor that was left over from when they abandoned the carnival, and these crazy, creepy clowns came in and took everything over. And then there's a couple ticket booths out there that we added this year that are interactive, and those are two of the original creepy clowns that are still living in those ticket booths. So you'll have to look out for those. But so it was just overlay after overlay this year that I really wanted to lay into the park for the 50th.
That's great. So Pasta, who is my co-host today, you've worked with talent for how many years? for 15 years, how have you seen that develop in those past 15 years? From, there's clearly a difference when Todd, first started with, hey, we're just developing the sliding, to 15 years ago to what is it now? How has that changed? And when we see talent, we mean the monsters that you're going to see outside. Pasta has the pleasure of overseeing and auditioning over 1,000 and working with over 800 monsters. So what's that like? Tell us about it.
Well, I started as a monster, so it's kind of interesting. When I started as a talent, they literally said, hey, you're a vampire. Go be a vampire. And I was like, sweet. All right. So I was a vampire.
Best vampire I've seen today.
That's literally the best one I could do. And from where we are today is when we audition, when we cast talent, and when we talk about talent, we have a creative drive. We give you a want, a need, how you're going to act, what your motive is, what your backstory is. We come up with these entire characters and give you a guideline and a wheelhouse to scare in. Any time you step out, their characters have an idea of who they are. When I started, we didn't have any of that. And it came from the drive and the passion. From being a vampire, I went to being a crazy psychotic nurse in the asylum many years ago. Now the asylum is back, so now I get to reteach the nurses in chilling chambers. Hey, I was a crazy nurse. This is what I did. Now I get to see that character revitalized. But before, we didn't have any of that, and so growing up and doing things within the company this is something important. It's like a script for a show. We're giving them the bare bones and the guidelines of how to play these characters. And it's kind of crazy to see where they get to.
So what is it like between like Ted and you? Like, we're talking about cinema slasher, we're talking about chilling chambers, as you start developing the story and things like that, what is it like working together, saying like, because, there's one thing to be like, hey, we have these effects, because I think a lot of you in the themed entertainment industry, we're used to like, we're talking about animatronics and things like that, but, now we're talking about humans and scaring people. What does that conversation look like?
Well, first off, since both of us were talent together too.
Yeah,
it's
true. We were in Ghost Town.
So it's almost kind of one of these things where we kind of almost inherently know what we're kind of looking for. So when it comes to the approach of the characters for the attractions that I've worked on, we give Pasta's team as much ammunition as possible to be able to accurately cast these different folks into the different roles that we're looking for, and then we give them creative content so that way they know when it comes to the training the monsters and all of that stuff. I mean, in general terms, that's kind of where it starts to at least get them going in the right direction when it comes to the casting.
Well, I mean, we've been talking for over a year about cinema slasher alone and about what we're expecting from the talent and the ideas and the creative. So it starts a year out regardless. Before we even get to the talent portion, we're literally in the development stage where we were talking about, what do we want? Okay, so we want victims, we want killers, but there's a progression to the story. How are each killer going to be different? How are they going to act different? And that is where me and Ted, as the creatives and going forward into casting, make that process. Where's the scare coming from? Where's the talent coming from? What are they wearing?
Right, because so something that's kind of somewhat unique for Not Scary, or unique in the industry that Not Scary Farm does when in terms of the scares for the attractions for the mazes, is we give the actors a lot of opportunities in how they scare the guests in a particular scene, as opposed to like just pop out of a closet and reset. We give space for the actors to basically use this room or this bedroom or whatever it may be. And so with that, there is more ammunition that we need to give to our actors so that way they know how to act in this particular scene beyond just giving them, what would be in the olden days, just a shaker can or just a foot trigger or whatever, boo, and then reset. It's like there's a lot more character development that a lot of you, for those of you who haven't been yet, you'll see that the actors have a lot more creative freedom within the scenes.
Well, when we started as talent, there was no guideline. So we were our own. You created your own character. I created my own character. It was very much...
That's probably one of the coolest things about Scary Farm. In the very early years of Scary Farm, the monsters were based off of movies. It was Planet of the Apes. there was like Dracula.
Island of Dr. Moreau.
Island of Dr. Moreau. That's the kind of thing. But as more people came in every year, they started wanting to develop their own characters. And wardrobe and everybody kind of were like, okay, what do you want to be? They would approve it, but it still happens to this day. Somebody has an idea, I want to be this clown. I want to add this to my costume. They still have to go through an approval process and to make sure it fits and works, but we let them develop their own characters.
I mean, if we didn't let them develop and have a creative, we wouldn't have ever come up with sliding.
Exactly. It's true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they would get bored. I mean,
Right.
if we didn't instill the
People live those characters.
They do. There is quite a few people that there are people who have their own characters tattooed. There are people who have other people's characters tattooed. But if we didn't instill that creative freedom here, we would have never had anything like sliding. We wouldn't be able to create these worlds that you guys are going to enjoy tonight, and we wouldn't have been able to have these talent.
Well, and wanting to do this is a crazy thing to even consider doing. I mean, a lot of us came as teenagers, high schoolers, whatever. We came and watched the thing, and it's like, this guy does whatever he does, and there's a difference between going, this is so scary, I'm having fun, to, I want to do that. I want to be that guy. It's like, how do I do that? And it's like, you see the audition come up and you're like, oh, we're going, And then once you get in here, it's like, I came up with what I was doing only because when I first started, there was like, I was pretty small. I mean, I was the smallest guy in our area. Everybody else, we had one guy that was 7 feet tall. We had two other guys that were about 6'6", and they were just imposing by mass. They would just walk around and go, and people would run because they're gigantic. And so all I had was I was faster than them, so I could run, and I would kind of chase people, or I would do this and that, and I just thought, once I saw the other type of sliding and remembering, we used to wear these knee pads. I wonder if I could use those and do that and kind of dive on the ground. And then once I got it all put together, and we had the gloves and the knees and the shoes and the whole deal, then it just sort of accelerated from there, and then other people see you do that, and they're like, whoa, I want to do that.
Knott's had to step in, too.
Right. Yeah, they have to step in at some point, because then everybody wants to do it, and it's like, not everybody can do this. It's like, it has to take a very specific set of skills. But because you'd run into people and knock people down and do all stuff. So then we have to come in with like a whole rule base and a training period of just like, okay, we're going to make sure you know what you're doing. Some of these guys practice year round. They'll start in January, and we have a couple spots around here where they'll go and people who've been doing it a while will show up and give lessons basically for free, and we'll just go out there and just people will learn how to do it because it's fun.
And real quick, on all these general notes that we're talking about, it really is kind of a testament to the innovation of Knott's Scary Farm. So since 1973, Ghost Town out there, that became the very first scare zone on the planet. So every scare zone at any Halloween theme park event in the world traces its roots back to Ghost Town. So it's really kind of important to kind of keep that in mind. We were talking earlier about the hanging. Jeff Tucker, he just rattled off a couple very important names. Some of you industry folks may recognize the name Tom Clough, who was the creative behind Super Mario Kart. Okay, so I mean, Ken Parks was the mastermind behind Ghost Town Alive. The hanging was very influential for a very popular show at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando named Bill and Ted's. So a lot of that stuff started right here at Knott's Berry Farm. So I know for the folks who have not been yet, you're getting a lot of information thrown at you, and you'll see it when you get inside. But just know that there's a lot of, hopefully you'll feel that level of history when you're going through the different attractions and the scare zones and seeing the various shows tonight.
So with that, I want to open it up. I could sit here and ask more questions and listen to y'all talk for hours and hours and hours. But I'm curious if any of you all have any questions for any of our panelists that we have today. Before you jump off, I'll come on down with the microphone.
It's like Donahue. I love this.
You're wearing a Knott's Scary Farm hat, so we'll start with you.
What seems to set Knott's Scary Farm apart? It's besides just being generic IP mazes based on movies or TV shows, Scary Farm seems to have more opportunities for the guests to have more personal, intimate interactions, whether it's things in the past like traps to special ops infected with laser guns or skeleton room keys in the past. What makes, for you and the creative team in your back meetings or brainstorming, how do you come up with new ideas to what's next? Like this year, there's the interactive lanterns. How do you keep up with the ideas of new ways to be interactive for the guests?
I can answer that.
Not it.
I can answer that. We have meetings all year, and no crazy idea is turned away. And if it is turned away, like you brought up Trapped, I'm the guy that thought of Trapped. For 5 years, they said, it's a terrible idea. It's a terrible, terrible idea. Never bring it up again. And every year they go, got any ideas? And I go, Trapped? Interactive maze? So no, what I do and what the whole team does here at Entertainment is we go to the other events and we see stuff and we're like, oh, that's pretty cool, but what if we did it this way? Or, oh my God, that's terrible. I got a better idea. Because that's normally like I watch terrible movies and I go, I have a better idea for a movie. So you go to these other events and you see things, or you watch a movie and it triggers something in your head, but you keep a pad and I send myself emails all day. Like, anybody do that? Like, to me. Subject, the thing.
I'll say we're already talking about 51.
Oh, yeah. I should, real quick, he's talking about Trapped. Trapped was 10 years ago. Before the huge proliferation of escape rooms, we did a maze here called Trapped, where it was my idea, and the idea is you go in, and the doors close, and you don't see anybody else. There's not that line of guests through the maze. Everything is specific. And to get out of a room, you have to do something. You have to solve something. You had to eat a bug or drink what you thought was urine. Like, not a big deal. It's not a big deal. You had to get in a...
Obviously was not.
We had a real morgue
It
drawer.
wasn't all urine.
We used to put people in a morgue drawer and, like, close them in. It was great. Had a safe word, so it was great. So, yeah.
And I'll tell you, we are already working on 51.
Yeah,
so we're going.
Yeah, you had to reach into a toilet. It was great.
Waiver maze, by the way. Everybody had to sign a waiver before you went in there.
Okay, so my question is for Jeff. So it's not only Not Scary Farm, but there's also Not Spooky Farm. Yes. So what thought goes into design for that transformation when it goes from spooky to scary, to making sure that it's all kind of, it can transform into each other, as well as the thought that goes into shared elements between both events?
That is probably one of my hardest things that I have to do. Especially they introduce a scare zone into what is the kids area, and I'm like,
you're
great.
welcome.
Here we go again. How do I integrate?
We tell the kids it's Kool-Aid.
How do we integrate kid fun with what's going on at night? So we try to make sure that all of the kid stuff that you see during the day disappears at night. And then the focus becomes on Gauntlet. It's very difficult. Now, as far as decor goes for Spooky Farm, Spooky Farm now, because
we're used to calling it Camp Spooky, right?
We can change the name all the time. Entertainment really supports a lot of the other things you see, the trick-or-treat spots and things like that, and they're just basing that around the decor that I've already provided. Because for the most part, everything you see in the park is very kid-friendly. We don't lean into gore during the day or anything like that. So you've already got the entire environment that is just kind of spooky and fun, and it just enhances the nighttime event. I will say that is probably one of the more unique things about our park, is that we do decorate every area of the park. Some other parks, they don't do that. And it's like a little splash of something here or a photo up there. I'm tasked to decorate every corner of the park. And also food venues, hotels, you name it. Hopefully they never ask me to decorate Independence Hall, but it could come. Who knows?
Funny story. First year of Camp Snoopy, we go in there to work. It was that they hadn't done it before, so they didn't decorate at all. So we went out there. We were in these monster outfits, and it looks like could get on these fun rides. Whee! It's like everything's all bright and sunny and fun. No cheesecloth, no nothing. So I just remember my friends and I walking around. We had these leather gloves that we'd wear to be spooky. And we would walk and we would unscrew light bulbs. Darker. We didn't take them. We just left them in there, but we just unscrew it till it turned off. We're like, Yay, it's dark now.
The monsters let you know if it is too bright in the park.
You know what else the monsters do? We once had a pirate maze in Camp Snoopy for the day for Camp Spooky. Like, because remember when pirates were like the biggest thing ever? And you could go in and you saw happy pirates. They were like, aye, welcome to Camp Spooky, right? And then at the end, you got a prize from the treasure chest, and it was great. And we would seal that off at night, and the monsters went in there, and suddenly, overnight, we had a brand new maze. And they had staffed it and set up their own queue, and they had a little sign, and I walked up and I went, what the hell is this?
What a happy accident.
It was crazy, yeah. And they, what's that? It's a surprise and delight.
At least they did that. We used to have people that would stand here in Ghost Town and just pull back a part of that curtain or something like, here's a maze, go in the maze. They'd go in a dead end.
Yeah, I've seen the monsters smuggle in their own end the line sign and set up a queue to nowhere.
We're not giving them ideas.
We run a legitimate operation here. 50 years, we're doing great.
Hi.
A watch over all at one time.
So you guys have been working in this industry for a very long time. Did you work in a similar industry before coming here? And what would you recommend for students trying to get into this industry?
Real quick, so for the good thing is when we all started, there wasn't really much. There were not too many opportunities for young folks to learn how to write and create and design these different attractions. Thankfully, that has changed. When I grew up in this industry, we did not have a TEA. We did not have various universities having themed entertainment majors or anything like that. So there are a lot more opportunities now for young folks looking to get into the industry in general. And then, of course, I mean, you can basically like Google search and all that stuff for themed entertainment writing and directing and design, whatever field you want to get into, but there are a lot of opportunities out there. But for the Halloween stuff, it gets even a little bit smaller because there's not a lot of folks out there in the industry that do this. The Halloween theme park industry is pretty darn small. But thankfully, like I said, there are at least opportunities that everybody has now that we didn't have when we were younger.
If you want to do it, if you want to be in this industry, you've already done it. Like you're the one with the best Halloween costume at the party. You're the one who's like, Halloween starts the day I say it starts. It starts the
July 5th.
Yeah, July 5th, right?
Halloween.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I'll tell this story as quickly as I can. When I was a kid, my mother's boyfriend worked at a warehouse where they stored like front doors to houses. Like you go in and buy a front door. What the hell, right? And he was not a good person, so he used to steal all the doors. And on the weekend, we'd have a door sale in our front yard, right? So for that Halloween, I used all the doors and made my own maze. You had to get through a maze all the way up to the front door. That's how I started. That was 1984.
And so, I mean, let me ask all of you up there. We all clearly work in the industry now. How many of you guys got a degree either in theater or even anything related to the industry?
My degree is in music.
I was supposed to be a pharmacist. Yeah, so I don't think any of this.
My actual degree is in store planning and design.
Yeah. So to Ted's point, what you all have now is leaps and bounds, above what we had when we were, starting our careers and things like that. So, yeah, we have time for one more question.
I was gonna say my degree.
Better make it a good one. What has it been like this year, your process, kind of creating what Horror Nights might call like icons? So we have Sarah Marshall and the conductor, and this year we have the keeper. What's kind of been the creative process bringing these like iconic characters to life for guests to interact with this year?
Well, for Sarah Marshall, so you'll see that we told that story in a new attraction that debuted in 2019 named Origins: The Curse of Calico. So before that, she was the witch that was being hanged that Jeff was talking about earlier, and organically she just kind of became this icon. And there was also a character in Ghost Town for many years from the very beginning that was the Green Witch as a character. So we kind of combined the character from the witch hanging and the ghost town scare zone monster and created this icon out of her. For the Keeper, that's a new character that we created that is inspired by the first host of Knott's Scary Farm, a television horror host named Sinister Seymour. That was the first host of Knott's Scary Farm back in 1973. And so so we kind of look at it in a reflective way on how to create these various icons, and because there is so much rich history here that there's plenty to work off for a very long time.
And so I lied. I said last one, but we're gonna do one last one.
Do we have to stop?
Okay, so what career advice would you give to any aspiring professionals in this field?
Just get out there and do it. Do whatever you can to get your foot in the door in any kind of way. If it's a themed entertainment like design firm, or if it's a theme park, whatever, just get your foot in the door. If it's for Halloween stuff, for me, I think Pasta would probably agree. I mean, Todd, you'd probably agree. I mean, if you could be a monster, that's just where we learn.
Do the event.
Everything.
Yeah, be in it.
Have I been a monster? Yeah, I was a monster for a couple times, yeah.
Yeah.
Have I been a monster yet?
Just in board meetings.
So it's true. I am where fun comes to end.
Fun sponge.
Where the fun goes to die.
So last year I was about to be a monster, and then that weekend I got super sick. So I was like, this is the weekend. I'm ready. I've worked out. I'm going to show them that I'm all in shape. Got sick.
In my 30 years, I have never been a monster on the streets.
Oh, wow. Wow. You should. It's fun.
For everybody who's ever asking on like, how did you end up in this career? I would like to let you know this was not planned. My degree is in costume design. I'm a certified florist in the state of California. Becoming a full-time monster manager was never part of it. But I will say the one thing I can tell anybody is have the conversation, make the connections, ask the questions. That's one thing I can say is never be afraid to like go to somebody and be like, hey, I like your job. How do you do it? And have that conversation. Be out there. Be forward. Ask anybody on this panel. I'm probably one of the most forward people to be like, hey, yes, I would like to talk to you. Thank you. I have no fear. And so it is sometimes a hindrance to me, but it is also a great skill set. Don't be scared. We're all people. Like everyone up on this panel, we're all an individual. We're all a person. So if you have questions about our particular paths, reach out.
Yeah,
that's super important.
Nicely said.
I never thought I'd be doing this for all of my career. I actually started in TV and film.
Oh.
So I was a set decorator, and then kind of this job fell into me by accident, and I was on vacation, and they said, hey, the park decor guy quit. Do you want the job? And I'm like, I don't know. Do I want the job? Well, here I am, 27 years later.
I would say the best advice I could give you is don't take no for an answer. Because everything that I've gotten from an idea to the page to the stage has gone through 20 different versions of never going to work, no, we're not doing that. Trapped was 5 to 6 years of like violent no. Like, we really hate this idea. And then suddenly it was like, well, wait a minute. Let me tell you what it is. So I've had a lot of stuff. Like, I've been involved in so many crazy, weird things here. Trapped, the Tricksters, taking Mystery Lodge, which was an established building, and saying, what if we use it for Scary Farm? What if we put a crazy show in there? And they're like, no. And I go, wait a minute. Don't say no yet. So a lot of no's and a bunch of yeses, and that's how you get here.
And it only takes one person to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You get that one yes. Yeah. And even developing what I've developed, it was just like, I mean, it was mostly my own brain just coming up with, stuff to wear and stuff to put on. But I certainly had help from others in the area. They were like, you know what you should do? What if you did this little metal thing or that little metal thing and just added it in and, and just use your friends, people anybody attached to any industry you're interested in, get to know them, and talk it out. And you can come up with lots of great ideas, I think.
So with that, unfortunately, we do have to wrap because Pasta and I have been talking, and we have to somehow get you to the other side of the park right before it opens. So we can do that.
Thank you.
Woo. But I do want to say thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you all so much for being here, and all of you. I hope you enjoy your evening. It's Not Scary Farm. We have 10 mazes, 3 of them being brand new. We have some new shows. We have some returning shows from The Hanging to Dr. Cleaver. We have some amazing decor. And then, of course, we have some scare zones. Thank you all so much for joining us.